I was approached by a video game company where I got my start. And I first got in as a community developer, then became a writer and a narrative designer. And what I noticed even in that industry was I had finally embraced the fact that I wanted to write, that I wanted to tell stories. And I realized that it wasn't always something that was left to people demographically like myself.
All right, so what do we got going on here? Well, this is the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., a company that insists your game be woke and will help you make it that way. Help you get it to a state of perpetual DEI awesomeness. So she has some interesting things to say about having worked in the games industry, so she claims, and then having worked as a consultant on games. Let's see what she has to say in this little video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. It's only 5 minutes long anyway, but we're only going to watch a small segment of it.
And so I started getting into more creative work. I did comics, I did a book, I did short stories. And then eventually, while I was working still in marketing, I was approached by a video game company where I got my start. And I first got in as a community developer, then became a writer and a narrative designer. And what I noticed even in that industry was I had finally embraced the fact that I wanted to write, that I wanted to tell stories. And I realized that it wasn't always something that was left to people demographically like myself.
No way, you're kidding. You mean they had to consider other voices at the table? You mean you weren't the only writer? And notice what she said. It wasn't always. It wasn't always left to people with her demographics. So sometimes it was. So she's complaining about nothing. Her whole life story hinges on her being oppressed. And here she is telling us that, oh, she wasn't really oppressed. Ridiculous.
And I started to realize that, there weren't a lot of mentors that I could look to. There weren't a lot of people ahead of me. And I started to realize
There weren't a lot of mentors or people ahead of you, really. So we've been writing narrative video games for 45 years now? There's nobody ahead of you. We've been telling narrative stories for thousands of years as human beings. There's libraries filled with creative literature. Universities teach these courses. Well, there's nobody to look to. There's nobody at all. You know why there was nobody at all, right? Because there was nobody of her racial demographics to look to. Although there was, and there is, but she just refuses to see them, refuses to take action to find them.
There's no path forward unless I kind of make it myself. So in 2018, one of my best friends and I, we teamed up and we founded a company. And the original desire was just to write together. We wanted to write with the two of us and a friend of ours, and we wanted to write games. But we realized that as a unit, we were capable of doing for others what had not been done for us, which was to support us, to empower us, to lift us up, to value our talent, and to help build our skills. And so today, what we do is.
Why are you depending on the industry to do this for you? I mean, I've worked in the games industry. Now, I've worked as a writer. I've worked as an animator. I worked in the film industry. Again, not as a writer, as an animator. So do you think this industry is there to support you or there to give you a job? You're there to do a job. If you can't do it well, they're not going to be like, oh, don't worry, we got your back, man. No, if you can't do it well, they fire you. That's how it is in these industries. That's just reality.
Is writing, narrative design, story building, story breaking as our first and foremost, but on a secondary level,
Her first and foremost is story design, story breaking. Remember she said that.
Work very hard to get marginalized talent into the industry, to protect them the way that we would want to have been protected, to lift them up, and to get them into an industry where they're too often shut up. And basically, I think
Okay, so she said secondarily, she wants to get these marginalized people in there. But story breaking that she's talking about, the story breaking that she wants to incorporate into storytelling, is adding in trans people, LGBTQ, alphabet people, whatever, black people, women, when there should be men, or when there's historically men in action roles, etc. That's what she wants to do. She wants to break the traditional narrative story to be non-traditional, and also to be inclusive, DEI, all that stuff, which we know that there's storytelling formulas. There's storytelling that works and storytelling that doesn't work. We understand this as humans. There's storytelling that we like and storytelling that we don't like. So you're not just going to be able to break the traditional way of telling stories. Your way of breaking it also includes just adding in LGBT people or black people or women, whatever, where they don't belong, or making the story about them when it should be about something else. Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of work, a lot of people interested in that. You rewind it here just a bit to go back and catch what she said.
I think to take over in the hopes that some really dope people that we would want to have been protected, to lift them up, and to get them into an industry where they're too often shut out. And basically, I think to take over in the hopes that some really dope people will be able to lead into kind of a new era for
dope people. What are dope people?
An industry that's been kind of, the same way too long.
An industry that's been the same way too long. So how has the game industry been? How's the games industry been for too long? Can you please tell me? They're not promoting Black LGBT stories? Is that what's going on here? Oh, why is that? Why is that necessary? Why do they need to focus on these superficial qualities instead of focusing on good story, good action, good game mechanics? Now, before we continue on, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. YouTube does unsubscribe people. You can find me over on Rumble and on Twitter. We got this here from Zero Hedge. Gay dragons and black samurai woke game companies in crisis as consumers walk away. I wonder why consumers are walking away. Could it be the DEI, LGBT, social justice, woke trash that they're putting out in these games? Was it Baldur's Gate? Was that the one where they had like the bear sex in it? I never played it because of that. I'm not gonna sit around playing these games that they're like clearly pushing the woke agenda. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I did, right? I wouldn't be able to have this channel anymore, right? Unless I was doing it to review. I can understand that, but I don't need to review that game to know that it's going to be something that's, infiltrated with the woke. The entertainment sector has been at the core of the woke movement over the course of the last 10 years, integrating critical race theory, feminism, gay and trans propaganda, climate change hysteria, anti-gun rights messaging, and pro-socialist rhetoric into their content at breakneck speed. There has always been progressive politics in movies and TV, but this new social justice takeover was a highly coordinated tidal wave, a blitzkrieg of hard left ideology into every possible media space. Powerful writing, but I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't think it was a blitzkrieg. I think it was just this just subversion of what normal people want, and instead, the pushing of some crazy agenda that doesn't really make any sense. One group of consumers noticed the threat very early on. Gamers picked up on the leftist subversion of their hobby almost immediately in 2013. They would go on to launch Gamergate in 2014, a movement to expose the feminist hijacking of games journalists and the hobby at large. They were punished for their foresight, accused of misogyny, bigotry, racism, and even terrorism. But they were correct. There was indeed a far-left agenda to dominate the gaming world and extort companies into adopting social justice propaganda. Yeah, there was a movement that was trying to push this stuff, trying to get this stuff into games, and it succeeded. It's in games now. The plan succeeded spectacularly. Most corporations eventually folded and instituted DEI programs outright. Gaming developers were some of the worst perpetrators, and their products quickly became replete with woke indoctrination. The one thing they didn't count on, though, was a consumer revolt. Haha, yeah, exactly. You thought you could just push your agenda and nobody would complain. So people are really, really just backwards in what they care about often. See, I actually care about the issues. Don't push this issue in my face. But people will actually care that you're even talking about a subject matter that has nothing to do with the game. Like this right here, people are saying, "Oh, I don't want to see pride stuff in my Spider-Man game. It has no business there." Okay, I can agree with that. My whole point is not that you're pushing the pride. It's like, why are you pushing the pride? What is the pride doing for you? Why do I have to be subjected to pride? Why does all that stuff have to happen? That's more important to me than going, "Hey, look, it's in my game." Even though I do complain about, "Hey, this is misplaced. It doesn't need to be in my game. I want to pretend to be Spider-Man swinging through the city, fighting bad guys. I don't need to see pride stuff in there." That's true, I don't. But the main issues for me are like, why is this happening? Why are you pushing this stuff on me? There's an agenda, and that's it. It's hard to say what they expected. Maybe they assumed that once the market was saturated with leftist content, the average consumer would give up hoping for a normal game with a good story, compelling characters, and fun mechanics, and simply buy whatever the critics told them to. Instead, gamers stopped buying anything and walked away. Yeah, there's plenty of old games out there that are great that don't have all this stuff in it. Any product with leftist messaging, race swapping, LGBT characters, or situations, etc., is exposed long before the project is released. The more insidious developers have actually sought to stop people from reporting on the content of these games using intimidation and legal measures, but nothing they do will save them. These businesses are rightfully collapsing. Wait, I don't think he used insidious right there. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, I don't think that's the right use of insidious. Anyway, people use it wrong all the time. It's worse than acronym, I think. Most recent casualties include Ubisoft, which reportedly stands on the edge of financial ruin due to multiple woke failures. Ubisoft is also sitting on perhaps one of the most woke AAA games released of all times, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Never seen it. Maybe it's this one here. The group hitched their wagon to an activist historian named Thomas Lockley with a wild tale the supposedly true story of a black slave named Yasuke who traveled on a Portuguese ship to Japan and became a samurai. Instead of making a game about a Japanese samurai in Japan's Azuki Momoyama period, they chose to use Lockley's research as the basis for the plot. Yeah, I don't know why you would insist on having a black samurai in your story, in your game, and expect it to be a big hit, especially. And you would, Assassin's Creed, they need this to be a big hit. They sunk how many millions of dollars into making this game? How many years? How many hours? These games take years and years to make. And then you're going to squander it by making the lead character a black guy in feudal Japan. Now, of course, this begs the question, why don't we have like a white guy in ancient Africa being a chieftain of an ancient African tribe or something? Why doesn't that fly? Oh, we can't do that. No, that's punching down. We can't punch down. So stupid. Leftists are known to be particularly hostile towards the Japanese because of their highly controlled immigration policies. Featuring a black samurai protagonist is obviously meant as a jab at Japanese culture. Is it? Is it meant as a jab, or is it just meant to be more propaganda to say, look, you can play a black guy, it's cool? As it turns out, Lockley's research is likely exaggerated or fabricated, and he has been accused by the Japanese government of potential fraud. Yasuke was, it's probably Yasuki, I don't know, was never a samurai. He was treated as an oddity by the Japanese emperor who had never seen a black man before. He became a fixture at the emperor's court for a short period, but was never given the title of samurai, nor did he have time to learn any of the warrior disciplines that samurai are renowned for. The man existed, but the idea of him being a samurai is complete fiction. Yeah, I'm not surprised that they would exaggerate these claims. They do this stuff all the time because most people aren't historians, so they'll just think, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. And one interesting thing that I want to bring up here from my own personal life is the oddity, the Japanese emperor who'd never seen a black man before. I actually had a client when I was a personal trainer that he would go to places in Thailand when he was in Vietnam. He was stationed in Vietnam, but I guess he was actually stationed in Thailand because they were doing logistics there or whatever. And he said he would go to places in Thailand where they'd never seen a white person before. And that's crazy to me to think like, wow, you've never seen, that's going to be so interesting. I mean, I can't really imagine what it would be like, but it's still got to be really interesting. Statements made by Ubisoft also seem to indicate that the characters of Assassin's Creed will be gay, including Yasuki. So a black gay samurai in feudal Japan who is supposed to be an assassin genius, he wouldn't stand out at all. Exactly. I know. It's like I was accused of stalking when I was driving a yellow car. I'm like, what? And I told that to somebody and he's like, stalkers can drive any color car. I'm like, no, you don't want to drive anything that stands out. You don't want to be somebody that is going to stand out if you want to stalk people. It's same thing with being an assassin. You don't want to stand out. You want to blend in. That's ideally what a spy should do. A spy should just blend in. An assassin should just blend in. But, I mean, what do I know? I just live in the real world. Ubisoft is stuck with this project. Hundreds of millions of dollars are already invested, and they have delayed the release multiple times. Most gamers are well informed of the fallacies and propaganda in the title, and it is expected to bomb hard once it is finally put on the market. The company is now engaging in mass layoffs across multiple studios, apparently in preparation of the vast sums of money they're about to lose. Yeah, and this is really frightening for me because, I put all my eggs into one basket called the animation industry, because we all know that the animation industry is the bedrock of our economy, right? So as more and more jobs disappear in this industry, eventually I might be out of a job because nobody's going to be going to school for this stuff. Another big developer that's in the midst of an implosion is BioWare, which is now being downsized by Electronic Arts after the embarrassing release of their highly expensive Dragon Age, the Veilguard title. The company hired gay and trans consultants and developers to inject alphabet propaganda into the fantasy project, and the results were hilariously bad, including trans dragon people and gay pirates preaching about neo-pronouns. Is this the one where they have you like, oh, I had to do push-ups because I used the pronoun wrong. I got punished. How long is this video? Let me see here real quick.
Pounding that snake's nose. She's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties. I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it. Sorry.
what are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
Oh, okay. A barv?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big drawn-out apologies. So when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling above.
So yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. You misgender somebody, you use the wrong pronouns, you have to go do 10 push-ups. All I have to say to that is this.
Ask a trans person the gender of their pet, and then ask them how they can tell.
Girl. Because of her parts. She had ovaries.
The layoffs come less than 2 weeks after Dragon Age game director Corinne Bush announced her own departure from BioWare, and just a week after EA said Veilguard had underperformed sales expectations. In reality, the game was an unmitigated failure. EA said Veilguard was down nearly 50% from the company's expectations. I wonder why. Gaming developers were some of the first people to join the woke insurrection of American media. So it's fitting that they are now among the first people to go bankrupt and lose their jobs because of it. Get woke, go broke. Hopefully, these collapsing companies will stand as a smoldering reminder that the consumer runs the show, not the creators. The free market is still a thing, and it decides if a game is going to succeed or crash and burn. The gaming industry, in its hubris, has been begging for a slap in the face for years, and now they have it. Nice. Yeah, this is not communist China, communist Russia, where everything has to be put out in a certain fashion. We have to have a certain message. Everybody has to be on board with the same message. And this is one of the problems with that system, is you can't have diversity of thought. You have to believe whatever the government tells you is the truth. Do you want to live that way? I know that there's a lot of people out there. There's people who even watch my channel who are like, people should believe what I believe because I'm right. And maybe you are, but you have to prove it. And right now there's a lot of things that we still haven't proven, and we're never going to prove everything. Why? Because the universe is a big place, and we humans are a little bitty by comparison. So being creative, that's fine. You can do this creative stuff, but you want to toss in some garbage like this in the middle of my action and adventure game? Really? Ugh. No credible story is going to be like, oh yeah, this is cool. No credible consumer of the story is going to like this. They're going to cringe. This is so cringy for so many different reasons. It's like 3 or 4 different reasons it's cringy. The whole idea is cringy. The way she was doing push-ups was cringy, and the fact that she could actually do push-ups, 10 of them in a row, is cringy. I mean, yeah, there are women who can do 10 push-ups in a row. There are women who can do hundreds of push-ups in a row. I'm not saying that's impossible, but like, can we have our feet planted solidly in reality first and then expand into fantasy? I love fantasy. I love all kinds of different fantasy stuff. Pretty much everything that I want to do in my life is fantasy. But when you get into this sort of thing, you're telling me how I should think, how I should feel, who the good guys are based on garbage social justice points of view, which aren't even worth preserving at all. You're telling me, oh, you used the wrong pronoun, therefore you're a bad person. Give me a break. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.